What's up, guys? Today we're gonna have a look at the game where Magnus Carlsen playing white shown a very interesting and aggressive variation against the Sicilian Defense, and he achieved a winning position in just about 10 moves playing against Indian prodigy Gukesh. So Carlsen starts off with knight c3 followed by pawn to f4, the Grand Prix Attack. And this is indeed one of the opening lines which I would recommend that you play against the Sicilian. I love playing it myself, especially in Bleeds, really strong. Here's an interesting thing. Black played g6. Then knight f3, bishop g7. By the way, black often wants to develop bishop to this diagonal because otherwise the bishop is not very active here because of all these pawns, and therefore it makes sense for black to wish to fianchetto their bishop. So the black goes bishop g7, and now white plays a very tricky move, pawn to a3. The move which seemed to make no sense at first. However, it does make a lot of sense, and we'll see why in a second. Because what can black do now? They never want to bring the knight out to f6 because of e5. And now the knight has to go back or somewhere to the side because we take control of these squares. Therefore, it doesn't look good for black, and that's one of the advantages of whites having these pawns here in the Grand Prix Attack. However, black still wants to develop in castle, therefore they often play e6, aiming to play knight e7 and then to castle this way. And generally speaking, it's a great setup for black. However, Carlsen revealed the purpose of this little insignificant move a3. It helps him to start a very tricky attack with b4. And b4 attacks this pawn as well as white threatens to push the pawn forward and drive away this knight from c6. And it's kind of already a little bit unpleasant for black. In the game, Gukesh played d5, and we'll talk about that in a moment. But for now, I just want to show you what's going to happen in the main line, because most of your opponents will certainly pick the easiest path. They'll see that this pawn is threatening them, and they'll wish to eliminate it by trading and playing knight takes b4. And at first looks like, yeah, so what? Why did you give up a pawn? But the reason is we play bishop a3 now, attacking the knight, and after he goes back, and they probably have to go back, they can't defend it because after we take it, the pawn is going to be pinned down to the rook. Therefore, it's not good. So after they go back, now we go knight b5, and we capitalize on weaknesses of all these squares. And we threaten probably knight to d6, sometimes bishop to d6, and it's all really, really deadly for black. For example, there are a bunch of funny lines which I love a lot. For instance, let's say black goes knight e7, and they just want to hopefully castle there, and they try to also block this diagonal, right? What do you do then? You could play knight d6 check. That's the most tempting move to play. But it's even stronger to play bishop d6, and that completely locks the position. Black just can't get out. Now, you threaten knight to c7, fork to the king and rook, and also bishop c7, just trapping the queen there. That's funny. And if black castles, thinking that, okay, now this doesn't work, knight c7 is not a check anymore, you play then bishop c7, attacking the queen. Queen goes knight d6, and just look at this. The queen is trapped on e8. Very rare and funny situation. Going back to the critical position of this line, black may also wish to just grab your rook on a1. But it certainly doesn't help. I mean, you could even just recapture and, strangely enough, take aim at this rook in the corner, and you'd still have a winning attack. But even more straightforward is just to go for your own attack right away. Check to the king, it has to go somewhere here or here, and in both cases it's going to be x-rayed by the bishop. Therefore we can play knight takes b7, which is a discovered check. And on the next move we're going to pick up the queen, then we're going to pick up the bishop, still with this beautiful attack to the rook, and black is completely destroyed. The best move for black here is to put their bishop back to f8. However, if your opponent plays this, you may suggest that he plays knight b8 on the next move, getting ready for the next game, because here it's indeed rather hopeless. And yeah, I mean, it's just so passive. e8 covers the square temporarily. You can still push e5, ensuring that you can land one of your pieces there. And black is completely cramped, they just can't get out. Let's say they try to develop, you land this knight on d6, and now this bishop isn't going anywhere, the rook isn't going anywhere, the queen isn't going anywhere, and it's just all bad. This rook, by the way, as well. You can also play knight g5, and that's what I call a nightmare. Like, two knights completely destroy your opponent's position. Now you threaten knight takes f7, attacking here, here, and black is defenseless. Now back to the game. Gukesh, being a strong player, did not take. He played d5. By the way, if you haven't heard of Gukesh, he's one of the Indian prodigies from Chennai, the hometown to many of the top Indian players, starting from Anand. And it's also the city where I tried kabaddi for the first time, and of course decided to stick to chess. Anyway, he found a better option. He played d5. He's one of the top players. And Carlsen played e5, which is also a nice move. Why? It locks this bishop. Now it has nowhere to go. our pawn chain restricts it. And here, even Gukesh, being one of the top players in the world, could not find the right way. The right way, counterintuitive move, it's not to take here, not a push or anything like that, it's just to defend this pawn by going b6, and then black maintains an equal position. However, certainly counterintuitive, very difficult to understand, why not to take? And he took here. On the next move, he probably realized that keep taking here will lead to similar lines to what we discussed. We've got knight coming there to d6 with check, we've got bishop a3 cutting the king off, like looks dangerous. Therefore, he decided not to take and he played just knight to h6. However, this pawn now can go forward and the knight has to go. And by this time, basically after d4, 10 moves in the game, Stockfish already says that it's winning for white. Why? Because black is completely locked. They just can't get out. Like the bishop isn't going anywhere. This bishop is locked by his own pawns, right? He can't get out. Now, the knights can hardly move as well. We push this knight out. If knight ever goes to f5, you can play g4 and kick it out. Therefore, black is kind of running out of moves. They're just completely locked. And that's why Stockfish says this is already winning. Now, anyway, the game goes on. Black castled, white just developed. And after that, a6, black is trying to give some, maybe got some counterplay. Bishop a3, black traded on b5, played knight f5. Here he hopes for this little trick, but of course Carlsen saw this, stopped it with queen to d2, and the problem for black is still the same. It's hard for them to untangle their pieces and to get any activity. He tried to play an active move, queen b6, kind of the first active move in the game, trying to maybe target this pawn and this knight. However, it's already a losing error, as after bishop c5, now this queen is attacked. He's got to go back, and on the next move, he actually resigned. After this exchange, white played g4, and it turned out that black could not successfully untangle their pieces. This knight is attacked. If it goes, that will drop this knight on e7, and he just resigned. If you enjoyed this opening variation, I've got a dedicated video right there where you can check different lines and you will know how to crush the Sicilian defense in Magnus Carlsen's style. And if you want to level up your positional chess and your strategic understanding of the game, check out this free masterclass. Either way, have a great day.